Good morning. This presentation is the message to the young generation, the young students and the young researchers. Maybe you know that the reason why you can enjoy the smartphone or iPad is because of the emergence of blue LEDs. And if you go to the electronic store, you can find the LED lamps, and in which blue LED is used. So today I'd like to explain how the blue LED was developed. Okay? So, but before starting my talk, I'd like to emphasize that the life is unpredictable. Okay? The 4 persons received the Nobel Prize in 2014 in physics. Okay? Professor Akasaki, he is very famous person, and he is my supervisor when I was a student. Okay? Professor Shuji Nakamura, he is also very famous. Every natural researchers know him. But in my case, I'm a nameless. Okay? So, Professor Akasaki had been nominated for Nobel Prize for more than 10 years. Okay? So when the announcement day came, many TV staff or the journalists came to his office and waiting for the announcement. And always they asked me, they said, if Professor Akasaki won the Nobel Prize, I will ask you for the comment. Okay? So I prepare the comments every year. The first year or the second year, I was very much interested in such a situation. But 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, I became tired of preparing the comments. So I decided to go abroad without informing details to our university. There was an announcement on Thursday, October 7th, 2014. I was in flight from Nagoya to Frankfurt. Frankfurt was the transit. Okay? When I opened my PC, I found I got many emails entitled "Congratulations" or "Omedetou gozaimasu" in Japanese. But no one wrote why it is so happy. So I couldn't recognize what happened. I should never receive so many emails, so it should be the spam mail. Then, with fear, I went to the Rian airport, it's a final destination, and found that many Japanese-like journalists waiting for someone. So I tried to pass through. But one of the journalists came to me and said, "Are you Mr. Amano? Do you know what's happened? You won the Nobel Prize." I said, "Wow." Yeah, but the trouble happens in my university, Nagoya University. I never informed to the staff of Nagoya University, so they did not know where I am. So I was missing at the press conference at Nagoya University. Next day, on October 8th, I visited Minatec, France. They asked me to comment on the impression about receiving Nobel Prize, but I could not remember what I talked at Minatec because I was so astonished, and I could not understand what had I could not understand what had happened. There is only one thing that I could remember. Okay? I got the phone call from Professor Konieda, one of the trustees of Nagoya University. Okay? He got catch me through the TV show. He said, maybe you went to the France by economy class flight. Okay? Return flight, you should use the business class flight. That's the only thing I could remember. And I went back to Nagoya on October 10th. In such a trouble, but the people of Nagoya University are very, very, very warm. They welcomed me pretty much, so I enjoyed very much. And next day, the Saturday, October 11th, there was a wedding ceremony of my former student at Sendai. So I went to the Sendai, and I tried to celebrate him, but he's also celebrating me. So there is a cross celebration. Okay? And next day, the Sunday, October 12th, I returned to Nagoya University and my office and found many, many emails. And in many emails, I found the emails from the Nobel Foundation. To tell the truth, until then, I had never contacted with the Nobel Foundation. And I read it carefully. It said, even though Nobel Foundation tried to contact you many times by the telephone call and email, you never respond us. If you do not respond us forever, there is a possibility that the award will be canceled. So I was so astonished and feared and tried to call the Nobel Foundation, but there's no response from them. But I could understand the reason why. Oh, today is a Sunday, so no staff should in the office of Nobel Foundation. Then I wait until Monday in the morning, 9 o'clock. I call it again, but still there was no response. So my fear becomes maximum. But soon I understood the reason. There was the time difference between Sweden and Japan. Okay. So I waited until the 5 p.m., then call it again. Then finally, I got the response from the Nobel Foundation. That's my funny story. Okay. Okay. Let me move on to the gallium nitride-based blue LED stories. The history of LEDs start from the red LED, which is the early 1960s. The material is the compound of gallium and arsenide. And the early 1970s, green LEDs was commercialized by the compound gallium and phosphorus, which is called gallium phosphide. red LED gallium arsenide and green gallium phosphide. So if the people studied the science, all the people could easily imagine what's next. Please imagine the periodic table of the element. The group 5, arsenic, phosphorus, then the nitride. Okay? So maybe almost all the people imagine that next should be the gallium nitride for blue LEDs. So in 1970s, many world-top scientists tried to commercialize, but abandoned the gallium nitride LEDs. No good gallium nitride crystals, no p-type gallium nitride, and no indium-containing indium gallium nitride. So almost all the people abandoned this material, except one person. His name is Professor Isamu Akasaki, my supervisor. He tried to continue the development of this material in a private company. But unfortunately, the manager of the company decided to quit the project. So he had to move from the private company to the university in 1981. And I joined his group as the undergraduate student. When I saw the graduation research, gallium nitride-based blue LEDs, I was so excited. The reason is, at that time, the personal computer system development was so rapid. 1975, Microsoft was developed by Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and 1 year later, Apple I was developed by Steve Jobs, Stephen Wozniak. Then many people developed personal computer systems, and I would like to contribute to the further development of the microcomputer system. And display was one of them. At that time, in all the displays, brown tube was used, which was too big. If I could realize the blue LEDs, I should change the world. That's the reason why I could concentrate on the blue LED development. In 1970s, almost all the people used the so-called halogen transport vapor phase epitaxial crystal growth system, which was too complicated, and the beginning student like me could not operate. So Professor Akasaki decided to change the growth method to much easier to control. That is called metal organic vapor phase epitaxial system. Okay? Yeah, that's a very important decision. But there was a problem. The reactor, the system, was too expensive. More than 5 billion, maybe, 0.5 billion Chile peso. Okay. So, of course, we are poor, so we could not buy the new reactor. So we, the students, decide to develop our own unique reactor by ourselves. That one was our unique, only one, world's only one reactor. Yeah, MVP method itself was an imported technology from the United States. But we have developed our own reactor by ourselves. Then we started to do experiments for crystal growth of gallium nitride. Okay? It was very good old days for the young students. In the laboratory, nobody knew about the new method, that is MOVP. So even beginning student like me could freely discuss with the professor, associate professor, with no hierarchical relationship. So students could independently proceed the experiment. Then the students tend to feel the responsibility for their research results. That was my most important experience as a researcher. But it was not easy to realize high-quality crystal. So 3 years have passed without any improvement. Then, just at the end of the master courses, I tried to change the growth method and use the buffer layer. There was a hint from the discussion in the laboratory. We discussed every night, more than 3 or 5 hours. Young Professor Sawaki mentioned that the other material system, the boron phosphide and silicon, the phosphorus atoms act as the buffer layers. Then, with this hint, I used the aluminum nitride as the buffer layer for the growth of gallium nitride on the sapphire substrate. And suddenly, from the first time, I succeeded in growing world's highest quality gallium nitride on the sapphire substrate. So it is called the low temperature deposited buffer layer technology. I was so excited and wrote the patent, of course, and also wrote the journal papers. I thought that this paper should get much interest to the world's famous researchers. But unfortunately, no one interested in these papers. The reason is all the researchers worldwide already changed the materials from the gallium nitride to the zinc selenide. Okay. So I'd like to ask the young students or young researchers, which do you choose as your research subject? If you choose the minority or majority research, there are many researchers, hot competition. You can write many journal papers, high possibility to get job opportunity or the academic position. But if you choose the minority topics, very limited researchers, moderate competition, it may be difficult to write journal papers because there are not so many researchers in the world. Few possibilities to get a job opportunity or the academic position. In my case, I chose the minority. Yeah, there was some economical or funding problem for me, but I was very lucky to continue research as the PhD program student by getting scholarship. Then, during the doctoral courses, I tried to overcome the next problem, that is the P-type gallium nitride. Okay. There was a significant hurdle to realize display. It was the challenge to the common knowledge. That is, at that time, almost all the people thought that P-type gallium nitride was impossible by the self-compensation mechanism. Self-compensation is relatively difficult, but if we dope some impurities, acceptor impurities, it becomes negative charge in the solid. Then, automatically, native defects is formed to compensate the acceptor impurity, which is called the self-compensation mechanism. This theory is true, but at that time, I could not accept the idea. So my impression of a self-compensation is only a poor excuse of the non-completion of the P-type. So I tried to realize, or I tried to overcome this common knowledge during the doctoral courses, 3 years, without any success. But I found a very interesting phenomena. During my internship at NTT, I found that by electron beam irradiation, blue luminescence of zinc, the acceptor doped gallium nitride, was irreversibly enhanced. So I call it the Levy effect, low energy electron beam irradiation effect. I was so excited and tried to present at the International Conference on Luminescence, which was held in Beijing, China. Okay. At that time, the China was just after the Cultural Revolution. So the banquet was held at National People's Congress Hall, big hall. And in each desk, there are many moutais. Do you know moutais? It's a very strong spirit, alcohol. I was so excited, so I drank too much, and I lost my memory at that time. Anyway, I thought this effect was our original findings. Then I tried to write the journal papers. At that time, in Nagoya University, to get the PhD, we need to write at least 3 journal papers. And I already wrote 2 journal papers. So this should be the final papers for getting the doctoral thesis. But when I went back to the Nagoya University, I found that in 1983, 4 years before my finding, one of the Moscow University team already found just the same phenomena as I found. I was so depressed and abandoned to write the 3rd journal papers. Consequently, I could not finish doctoral thesis in 3 years. But I was very lucky that I could continue the research for seeking p-type gallium nitride under the support of Professor Isamu Akasaki. Then, when I read the textbook written by Jesse Phillips, I found that in case of green LEDs, magnesium is much, much better than zinc for p-type. And I found my mistake. I only concentrated on zinc. Then we switched to the magnesium and soon realized the world's first p-type gallium nitride and p-n junction LEDs in 1989. The magnesium doping itself was first tried by Dr. Maruska in 1973, but combination of magnesium doping with leaf treatment, p-type realization, and the fabrication of p-n junction LEDs were our original work. So I would like to emphasize once again how blue LED affect the human life, especially to the young generation. The reason why you can enjoy, for example, Pokemon Go is because of the emergence of blue LEDs. Okay? But in 1996, one of the engineers of the Nichia Corporation found this phenomenon. Please look at this place. This is a very normal blue LEDs, okay? But by combining this film, we can easily realize the white LEDs. Many people think that the LED lamp composed of 3 primary color LEDs, blue, green, and red, but that's not true. In the LED lamp, only the blue LEDs were used. And only the blue LEDs can realize white LEDs. Other LEDs could not. Then the efficiency of LED lamp improved rapidly. And now, it is 8 times higher than that of incandescent lamp and 2 times higher than that of fluorescent lamp. So by changing the general lighting system to LED lamp, we can save energy consumption. So let me explain how we can suppress the electricity consumption. This graph shows the electricity generation and CO2 emission in Japan. Okay? Before year 2011, this country is also famous for the earthquake, but my country is also very famous for the earthquake. There is a big earthquake in March 2011. Before March 2011, about 30% of the electricity was generated by nuclear power plants. But we have to stop the operation. So the ratio of the thermal power plant increases drastically. It reaches close to 90%. So the CO2 emission increased drastically. The government target for the reduction is 26% compared with the year 2013 to 2030, and 80% by year 2050. CO2 emission reduction reduction of greenhouse gases is also very important worldwide. It was called the COP21. There was a signature in this country, September 2016, and acceptance in Japan, November 2016. Okay? So how a blue LED contribute to reduce the carbon CO2 emission or the energy consumption reduction? This table shows reported from the US Department of Energy. They predicted that in United States by year 2030, about three quarters of the general lighting system will be replaced to LED lighting system, by which we can save about 7% of the total electricity consumption. In case of Japan, the penetration should be much, much faster. By year 2020, we can reduce total electricity consumption by about 7%, which corresponds to 1 trillion Japanese yen, or 5.7 trillion Chile peso. Okay? In addition, LEDs lighting not only change our life, but also keep the traditional lifestyle. The example is Mongolian. In Mongolia, the traditional lifestyle is the nomad life. They do not have the fixed housing. They use the tent called gel and moving around at each season. But unfortunately, the young people, young Mongolian, do not want to continue the Mongolian lifestyle or nomad lifestyle and tend to get the fixed housing. That was the problem. But the emergence of LED lighting changed the mind of young Mongolian people. The Dr. Gantumlu, the former Prime Minister of Education of Mongolia, came to our university in 2015. Then I listened to his talk. So I went to the Mongolia, one of the family of the Mongolia. Then I found that they really used our LED lamp. I was so happy to see that. Okay, finally, I'd like to send a message to the young students and the young researchers. Of course, the life is not so easy. I could understand. But I do believe your constant challenge and persistent efforts will lead to much brighter future for the people of Chile and the people all over the world. So what I learned from my experience is learning is merely the first step. You should go one step further to think yourself and do it yourself. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.